Chapter 4. Curious Assistant. Everyone crowded around Carla as she pointed to the rest of the vertical line of letters. I think they spell cola. In Spanish, that means tail. Nancy's face broke into a broad grin. Then the two words down are mono cola, monkey tail. That's right. Senor Ponce nodded. But what is the significance? No one could answer the question, but each was thinking hard. Probably, Bess suggested. For some reason, Senor Aguilar couldn't give the monkey a whole tail, so he carved the word tail. That sounds reasonable, Carla's father remarked. Maybe, said George. This monkey had a special kind of tail. To find the answer, I suppose we'll have to consult books that tell about all sorts of simians. Do you have any such books? I think so, Senora Ponce answered. But I believe all monkeys have long tails. Only apes and baboons do not. Her husband said, Nancy, you haven't expressed an opinion. What do you think? The young sleuth replied slowly. Since this plaque says monkey tail and part of the tail is cut off, I believe that fact is some kind of a clue to the mystery. You mean, Carla asked, if we can figure out the significance of the tail, it will lead us to something valuable that our ancestor Aguilar hid or did in a secret place? Yes, I do. I also think possibly the kind of wood the plaque is made of may have some bearing on the mystery. Do you know what kind of wood this is, Senor Ponce? Nancy asked. Carla's father shook his head. To tell the truth, I never took the trouble to find out. Who could tell us? The best person in Lima to ask is Senor Jorge Velez. He has a shop and a factory, and among other things, he makes beautiful hand-wrought wooden trays, plaques, bowls, salad forks, and spoons. I am sure he will recognize what the plaque is made of. In any case, I know you girls will enjoy looking around his shop. Carla's mother added, You might like to make some purchases to take home. Nancy was eager to visit the place at once. Senora Ponce said that the shop was not open at this hour. On Thursdays, Senor Velez was there only between 4 and 7 o'clock. The plaque was wrapped carefully, and the four girls set off just before 4 o'clock in Carla's sports car. She proved to be an excellent driver, as she skillfully wound in and out among the heavy traffic of the business district until she came to Senor Velez's shop. It's a quaint old Spanish building, Bess remarked, admiring the rococo design above and around the heavy doorframe. When the girls entered, 2 men were there arranging attractive polished bowls on the shelves. One of the men, who said he was the proprietor, was about 50 years old. He had finely chiseled features and wore a small mustache and a pointed beard. His hair, combed straight back, was wavy and slightly long. The girls introduced themselves. Senor Velez bowed and said, I am very happy to meet you. He introduced the other man as Luis Losa, his assistant, who was about 30 years old. He was surly-looking, thin, dark, a bit stoop-shouldered, and had hairy arms. His eyes were shifty. Both men spoke English. Nancy unwrapped the plaque and showed it to Senor Velez. Can you tell us what kind of wood this is made of? He examined the plaque carefully, even taking a tiny sliver from the edge and holding it under a light. Presently he said, This is very old and very unusual. The plaque is made of Arajanas wood. There is only one place in the world where it is found. Here in Peru? Carla asked. Senor Velez shook his head. It comes from a forest of Arajanas trees at the end of a peninsula, a good distance from here. The place is in the Argentine. The Argentine! Nancy exclaimed. Secretly, she had thought of going to the source of the wood, hoping to find a clue there to the mystery. Now the idea vanished. Exactly what part of the Argentine is it in? Carla asked Senor Velez. The shop owner said that the peninsula stretched into Lake Nawel Wapi. If you girls could possibly manage it, you should visit the Arajanas forest. It is thought that these trees are the descendants of prehistoric ones and are unlike any others on Earth today. They are most unusual to look at. The place is a government preserve, and nowadays no one is allowed to take any wood from there. I suppose that was not a rule when this plaque was made. Carla began to tell Senor Velez about the mystery surrounding the object. As she was speaking, Nancy noticed that Luis Losa had edged closer. He had a notebook in his hand and was making a sketch of the plaque. Somehow she did not trust this man, and when he reversed the plaque to the side with the cipher, she grabbed the ancient piece from him. "This is private property," she told him firmly. George, too, had noticed what the assistant was doing. With a lightning move, she reached across the counter and grabbed the notebook. She tore out the page with the sketch on it, then laid the book back on the counter. Luis Losa glared at the girl, hatred in his eyes. He murmured something in Spanish under his breath, put the notebook into a pocket, and hastened into a back room. There was silence until Senor Velez spoke. "Sometimes my assistant is over-curious," he said apologetically. Nancy was embarrassed by the situation and quickly changed the subject. "Do you export your products to the United States?" she asked. "Yes," the craftsman answered. "Many of them go to places in your country, especially to New York City." On a hunch, Nancy asked if he ever shipped anything to Harry Wallace. "No, I think not, but let me look." Senor Velez took an account book from a locked drawer in a desk and quickly turned to the W's. "Harry Wallace's name is not listed here," he said finally. The girls looked over the handmade articles in the shop and made a few purchases, then left. When they reached the Ponce's home, Carla hung the plaque on the wall where it had always been before she had taken it to River Heights. "From the time I was a tiny child, I always loved the monkey," Carla remarked. "By the way, do you girls feel like doing any more sightseeing?" Bess answered, "If you mean am I tired, I'm not." The others were enthusiastic to see more of Lima, and Nancy added, "I'm sure you have museums here. Do you think we might visit them and see if we can find some object with a monkey on it? It might give us a clue to why our monkey hasn't a whole tail." Carla said that among the museums there were 2 in the city which specialized in pre-Columbian art objects. "I believe one of them is closed at this hour, but I know the owner at the other one. He lives nearby, and even if it's closed, he will let us in. It's the Museo Rafael Larco Herrera." When the girls arrived, they found the museum open and 2 other visitors there, a man and a woman. The man was a portly, red-faced North American. He was brandishing a cane to point out the various objects to the woman, apparently his wife. She kept saying to him, "I can see things. You don't have to point out everything. You might knock one of these ancient figures off the shelf." Each time she said this, he looked at her with a supercilious smile.
"Don't be so bossy. I know what I'm doing."
As the girls walked up and down the various aisles, marveling at the hundreds of ancient bits of pottery, they watched intently for any which might have the design of a monkey on it. There were jugs of all kinds, some plain, others shaped like animals or decorated with them. Displayed in glass cases were many interesting pieces of jewelry. Presently, Bess exclaimed, "Come here, girls! Did you ever see such huge earrings in your life?" "They must weigh a ton," George remarked, as she gazed at the huge discs of copper and turquoise. As the girls went on, they could hear the voices of the couple not far ahead of them. The woman was still advising her husband not to keep pointing with his cane. Nancy and her friends suppressed giggles. Carla, in the lead, entered another narrow passageway where the shelves on both sides were crowded with valuable ancient pottery. The man and his wife stood gazing around. They did not seem to notice the girl's approach. Suddenly, Carla cried out, "I see a monkey jug!" Nancy, directly behind her, stared at an upper shelf to which Carla was pointing. At the same instant, the man ahead of them suddenly swung his cane upward. The tip of it struck the monkey jug, which teetered for a moment, then fell toward Carla's head. The next second, it would crash to the floor and be smashed to bits. End of chapter 4.